Hello, everyone, and welcome to You'll Probably Agree. Today, I have Ian Simmons from Feelin' Film Podcast. Right?
Nope.
Fuck! All right.
That's Don Shanahan.
Don Shannon. Oh, shit. Which one is yours?
Kicking the seat.
Kicking the Seat. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do that again.
Good.
That's staying in. I want everyone to know.
Shout out to Don.
I want everyone to know how incompetent I am. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to You'll Probably Agree. I have Ian Simmons from Kicking the Seat Podcast.
Yes.
This time I got it right. And as always, we are talking about the 2019 Forgettable Academy Awards.
What do you mean forgettable? These films, all of them are classics. That's destined to be in the Pantheon forever.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's going to forever remember...
A Star is Born 6 or whatever it is.
Yeah, A Star is Born, number 1000. God damn it. All right. All right, so I'm going to start off with, because I got some emotions about this one. Not about the film, but about its director.
All right.
Jeez, I wonder which one this could be. But, so I saw Queen, which was the last movie that I saw.
Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw Bohemian Rhapsody. I meant to say that. I'm not even drunk right now. Like I'm just fucking up all
You're
over
drunk
the place.
on talking about the Oscars, which I totally understand.
Yeah. But no, I saw Bohemian Rhapsody, and if there is one film that I would say, this is one of those Oscar years where I'm rooting for every movie but this one film.
All right.
And it is Bohemian Rhapsody, because it's not exactly a bad movie. It's a perfectly adequate film that has no individualistic choices that would discern itself from any other musical biopic.
Sure.
And it could have been directed by anyone. It literally just hits every beat of musical biopic bingo. And, like, you have the band that breaks up. You have, like, the moment where someone's inspired by a song and they start playing it and then they cut to the concert.
Oh, yeah.
And it feels like Bryan Singer was only there because of all the behind-the-scenes drama, not just with the little boy hot tub rape shit, but also with the fact that like they said like he was never on set and he got like in some sort of like physical confrontation with Rami Malek, who I think deserves to win the Oscar and I think will win the Oscar for Best Actor. It felt like he was only there to direct like the final concert scene, which is an amazing scene, but it goes on forever.
Yeah.
It's like 15 full minutes.
Yeah, it's like 20 minutes because I think that was the time that they were allocated at Wembley Stadium for was it Live Aid?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Live Aid.
But here's the thing. I really liked that scene.
Yeah.
My only problem with it was, and I understand the logistics of trying to recreate those shots, in the early 1980s.
Yeah.
But you could tell it was all like CG crowds and swoops and
That's
everything.
what really bothered me.
When they're on the stage performing, there's nothing like it. It's awesome. But yeah, I mean, I had problems with Bohemian Rhapsody, some of which I didn't even understand until after I'd seen the movie, because my understanding of Queen, I know people who are big fans of the band and Freddie Mercury, know the history. The ones that I've talked to have said it's not good because they take so many liberties with the timelines, with the characters and melding characters and all that, that it's just not honest. And I think if I had been a diehard and I'd gone and seen this bullshit, I would have been like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
But going in just knowing the songs, I had a really good time, even though it's poorly edited. They go from, hey, you want to, you can be in our band, to 1 year later they're on tour. I'm like, no, you need to fill some of this
like
in
less than
here.
a second they're famous.
Yeah.
Which I didn't mind that as much because the movie already knows that they're going to become famous. And I don't think it wanted to do the thing where you have to slowly watch them get to that point of being famous because we know what's going to happen. The big
Some people
is,
do. I mean, this movie, it was a giant success, right? And I think a lot of people are coming into this, like younger kids, who just know Queen probably from songs that appear on TV commercials.
Yeah.
Right? So there's room to breathe here. And I would watch Rami Malek do 4 hours as Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would put him as the best actor, but I don't know who I'd put as the best actor, honestly. It's such a weird field this year.
Yeah.
But he was just so much fun. He really made this movie for me.
Yeah. I think Rami was the whole reason to see the film. I don't know what Sacha Baron Cohen's version would have been like. because he said.
Sorry, I hope that didn't like distort the
No,
sound.
no. You have feelings. Please tell me. Go. Let it out, Sue. Let it out.
No, that's. I want to visit the alternate universe where his movie got made because it was apparently, from my understanding, is the rights holders for the Mercury estate or Queen or whoever disagreed with his kind of hard R, very honest look at Freddie Mercury and the band's relationship. So they came out with this PG-13 version of it. And I always thought that Sacha Baron Cohen looked oddly enough like Freddie Mercury, without any kind of fake teeth or whatever. So again, in a perfect world, I think we would have seen that version. But you can't always get what you want.
Yeah, like I heard the argument was they wanted to focus more on sort of like his homosexual relationships, and I'm like, well, this movie did focus on that,
It talked about it, but didn't focus on it, which is something I appreciated because it's a different angle. That is one of the few, I think, surprises in the movie was how they dealt with his relationship. Yeah,
I don't know. I guess Cohen's version probably would have been a little more introspective, maybe a little less like a commercial for Queen.
Sure.
Which, this movie was definitely kind of like, oh, here's another awesome song that we remembered. Here's another awesome song. And I don't know, it didn't really say anything different. It wasn't anything new. It was just kind of, It was okay. I don't think it was deserving of the prestige of Best Picture.
Oh yeah, and I think there's at least one, maybe two other movies in this, the expanded list that we've had for the last few years that certainly are weird choices. But yeah, in the moment watching it, I had a lot of fun. But the next day, I think I'd forgotten that I'd seen Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm like, I want to see. Oh wait, I just did.
Yeah, exactly. So I think moving on from that. I guess probably one of my favorite nominees, I'm tied between this and another one for my favorite picture, was Roma.
All right.
Which I know there's, from what Pat McDonald has told me, there's a lot of people who are like in the foreign press who are Oscar voters this year. Not the foreign press, whatever. He knows more about this than I do.
Hollywood foreign press is that's Golden Globes, right? But you're just talking about generally the foreign press.
Yeah,
not
there's
the Hollywood
foreigners. There's foreigners in there this year.
We need to build a wall around the Academy.
Yeah, and I guess like they have more influence over Roma, but I loved Roma because it was sort of this very methodical picture where Alfonso Cuarón kind of took a step back away from what he did with Gravity, where that movie was more about its style than its substance. And here, this is a film that's about an old, Mexico City that was once beautiful and something, you could aspire to as you see it get torn apart. And the film just sticks with sort of like these very memory-like sort of camera movements where it's mostly just pans and tilts and stuff like that. Nothing too flashy, but there are long dolly shots that kind of remind me a little bit of like Godard's Weekend. But I liked it because the movie was a film that respected the audience's attention. It forced you to pay attention to it, and it's something that I regret to say was not able to see on the big screen, but needs to be seen on the big screen because it utilizes a wide depth of field in it that is very often not used in movies. And I always say, like, sure, you could be a good cinematographer with a shallow depth of field, but to me it's like cheating because you could just take all the other stuff out of focus. Usually with a wide one, you have to force everyone to look at something and to really understand why is that shot in there. And I mean that's like something a lot like what Tchaikovsky did. And yeah, it was a movie sort of, of course reminiscent of today, where you have a maid who's stuck in a situation where she can't really speak up for herself. She can't really defend herself because either her psychotic boyfriend is going to kill her, because she gets impregnated by this guy who's nuts. And if she speaks up against like this rich family that she has, she's sort of like this underclass citizen that'll be taken advantage of by the system.
Sure.
Yeah. What do you think of it?
Well, I hated Roma.
Oh, but no, that's good. I want to know why. Please. Know why.
I don't know if we have that kind of time, but no,
of course. Yeah.
Here's the thing. I love Alfonso Cuarón. I was a big fan of Gravity, mostly because you're right. There's not a whole lot to the story, but I think that is definitely he created a cinematic. Like you have to go to the movie theater and see this at least once.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Interstellar. A movie that I don't think is very strong, but at least go see it in IMAX.
How dare you!
2000
Love will save everything.
Sorry, do we have a vomit bucket here?
Yeah.
Anyway, so no, here and Children of Men was one of my favorite. That's one of my all-time favorite movies. So I was excited to see anything that Cuarón does, and I'm not caught up in his whole filmography. But I'll give it a shot. Roma, you're talking about audience engagement and that kind of thing. I know a lot of critics who are absolutely in love with this movie. In fact, I don't know any other critics who don't like it.
Oh, wow. God, that sucks. I'm sorry, man.
No.
I know what it's like to be there.
Look, there's a reason my site is called Movie Reviews from the Last Guy Anyone Asks, because that's me. But the thing is, I'm very curious about what, and I haven't seen much written about this, what actual Netflix viewers think of Roma. Because it's kind of genius to put this movie out on Netflix where literally everybody can see it. The problem is, the complaint of a lot of Oscar movies is they're movies that came out and no one bothered to see them because they're artsy-fartsy, and if they get a big release, that's kind of like a bonus. Maybe you can go see it.
They're kind of artsy. There's a line that they straddle with the Academy.
Well, yeah, this year in particular, it's commercial everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But Netflix, anybody can watch, who's got a Netflix subscription, can watch Roma. Yeah. And I wonder about that opening 5 minutes where it's just the shot and the reflections of the mop water on the floor and everything. I was like, I get it.
Yeah, okay,
I get it.
That is true.
The whole thing I thought was just kind of obnoxious because, the whole thing about panning from left to right, I was like, yes, you've made the same camera move 40 times in this movie. And yeah, the compositions are nice. But I wasn't invested in the story or the characters. As far as the maid goes, I didn't exactly understand why I was supposed to be on her side. She's a lousy maid. When the owner of the house comes home and he's stepping over dog shit in the driveway, he's like, how many times do I have to tell you to pick up the dog shit? Yeah. I'm like, ideally, even if you're not, working for the house, the answer is none. Because you're like, there's a day's worth of dog crap in the driveway that people have to come through. It's kind of a neat house. The driveway is inside a covering, an awning or something. You have to go through that to get home. And also, she gets impregnated, but this guy, I don't know enough about her. She's sort of a cipher, right? We don't know exactly where she comes from, how smart she's supposed to be. She sleeps with this random dude unprotected. She gets pregnant. There is a great scene where he joins this band of revolutionaries, and there's a horrible shootout, and that's interesting stuff, but I couldn't get involved with any of the characters in this movie. And Cuarón says that he wrote this as a tribute to the women in his life. I'm like, I don't know if I want to know these people. So he just
randomly knocked up women and left them or something?
No, I get the feeling it was like his mom and his maid or whatever, but there wasn't enough personal biography in this movie. It was all stuff that I'm supposed to bring to this. Yeah. And that was a deal killer for me because what I'm watching in the film is just this screw up. I'm like, what are you doing?
She is kind of an overly passive protagonist, I think. And I wish she did have a moment where she stood up for herself. But then again, it's think of if you're a maid, and I know they were in Mexico, but if you're a maid in America and you stood up for yourself, what would happen if you said something? They'd fucking deport you or something.
Maybe. I don't know that that's true.
And I think that was sort of a reflection on that.
Well, but this also takes place in the 1970s, right?
Yeah, but it's still relevant, 60s?
Maybe. But lots of things change over the course of 40, 50 years and in different countries. So without the context of the movie, I can sit there and think as a modern liberal American, oh my God, it's so good that she didn't speak up. Whereas in the film, we find out that the family is very compassionate towards her. They're very helpful. And I would think that if she spent any considerable amount of time with these people, she would know this is not the kind of environment where I need to be afraid to say, hey, pardon me, because the kids think of me as their aunt. Yeah. It's not like I started last week and now I'm pregnant, I'm going to be this big problem.
Yeah. That's true. I don't know, but then again, if you're in that position and she has nowhere else to go, who knows? The family could be like, we love you, hey, get the fuck out,
Could be, but again, I'm not meant to watch this as choose your own adventure.
Yeah. But no, it just from my perspective, it felt good that Cuarón was having a movie where he took a step back from his own style, but he did have kind of they weren't the most likable protagonists. No. The mom, well, I don't know, I felt bad for the wife because her husband, he had his Secret Service missions and she couldn't, get any intel on what was going on with him.
Well, and again, without getting much information about these characters, not that there's any excuse for a guy to leave his wife, but she's kind of, weirdly clingy and hysterical about him and like chasing after him. Like, I don't know what's going on here. Is she genuinely psychotic? Or is he just an asshole and is pushing her away, and that's why she's acting this way and she's home and having to take care of these kids, although she has like a full house staff? I didn't know what was going on with any of these characters, and the movie is like 2 hours long.
It was kind of like a 2.5-hour film about like a girl who had like a really bad one-night stand. Like that's really what it is.
Yeah. So again, I understand that I am probably alone in this perspective, and I love that so many people love this movie.
Yeah.
Because I never want people to hate movies, but it wasn't working for me.
But no, I do understand your perspective though, because it could have used a little bit of trimming, because at a certain point it did kind of repeat itself. No, it was a good reflection on the America that we live in today and what it's like to be someone who's impoverished, who can't stand up for themselves. And you don't know if you have trust in your other man, but then you can find out if you do trust people, they can help you out, as they did with Cleo in the end.
Yeah.
But, moving on from that, I'd like to move on to Vice. I reviewed this one already, and
Okay. No, sorry. Go ahead.
No. What do you? I'll start with you first. What do you think of Vice?
I don't. I hated Vice too. But here's the thing: Vice is, I think, a movie that I would have loved in 2004.
Yeah.
Or 2008 as a companion piece to W by Oliver Stone.
Yeah.
But that's
way better than W.
Maybe I don't remember as much about W, except that I think Richard Dreyfuss's 10 minutes of Dick Cheney was better than Christian Bale's 2 hours as Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
Christian Bale can do anything, but my problem with his performance as Dick Cheney comes back to the screenplay. This movie didn't teach me anything about Dick Cheney. I was really excited because I loved The Big Short. I think that was an entertaining and informative movie about the market crash and the housing crisis and things. So I kind of went to this thinking, okay, Adam McKay is I knew a lot about Dick Cheney. I was a political junkie back in 2001 on. I'm like, all right, let's get inside the man. And all it was a highlight reel of things that the left was attacking him for, 15 years ago. I'm like, there's no humanity here, there's no explanation. I just didn't get why I was watching this movie.
See, that's what I liked about it, was that it was unflinchingly honest about how horrible this person was. And the thing was, like if you see a movie like W, you still kind of had like a sympathetic angle towards George Bush, where he was doing a job that was way beyond his intellectual capacity, and then the pressures of it got to him, and he started to collapse under it. But it was very kind of rushed through the door and stuff like that. And here, I was watching this movie, I'm like, well, I hope they don't try to make something where they make a politician look like a nice guy in the end. And the only moment you get of that is when he accepted his daughter for being who she was. But then even then, he betrayed her trust.
You get the feeling that his relationship with his daughter was more, he was defensive of her because she was his.
Yeah.
It was strictly.
If it was anybody else's daughter, it wouldn't matter.
Right. It was kind of like that whole thing with the 80s with the treatment of gays in society. It's like if you have a gay cousin, maybe you'll understand, but otherwise, screw them basically. Like the AIDS crisis and all of this other like horrible stuff that's happened in our history.
Yeah.
But the problem I had with Vice, I want to say W, is Dick Cheney, for as much as I don't like him and I don't like what he did, he's still a human being.
Yeah.
And this movie presented him as a cartoon down to Christian Bale's, penguin cantankerous impression of him.
Yeah. Everything's speaking in absolute monotone.
Right. And you've got Amy Adams playing Lynn Cheney, reprising her role from, what was that Paul Anderson movie?
Oh, yeah. From The Master.
The Master, yes.
Where she's just kind of an uptight wife who does what God wants or whatever some higher power wants.
Kind of working the angles behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. So there was nothing new in Vice. I felt like this is the kind of movie that, again, sort of like Bohemian Rhapsody, is made for a younger audience who probably wasn't politically aware at that time. And I think that's, in a way, sort of dangerous. Because as much as we like to think of Dick Cheney and that whole crew as one-dimensional cartoons, they weren't. And I think it's important to understand how they, as people, got into these positions of power. I didn't buy the whole Don Rumsfeld thing at all because, you know, I watched a lot of his appearances on Meet the Press and everything, but I guess behind closed doors he was like this profane, like, weirdo. I'm like, I need more here.
Yeah.
Like, there was such a dramatic switch there. I'm like, I don't know if this is true or if this is artistic license or if this is, like, the opening of the movie, they have this title card where they're talking about, you know, we did our best, we fucking tried, in terms of like digging into this mysterious Dick Cheney. He wasn't mysterious.
No.
He was all over the place. In the media, he was right out front.
Yeah.
He got this reputation as this string-pulling, shadowy figure.
Yeah.
But if you watch Meet the Press every week, you'd see him on there or see him giving an interview somewhere else. And my question is, in trying to tell this story, did they try it by going back and reading, you know, 15 years of Salon articles?
Yeah.
Or did they actually talk to Republicans or people that knew him? Did they not get access? Like, what's the backstory behind this movie? I want to see that.
Yeah, see, I don't know if you could make a third dimension for Cheney, because much like imagine if you try to make Scarface, where Tony Montana was a sympathetic figure.
Well, Tony Montana, no, he's a fictional character
Yeah.
made to represent something. Dick
Right,
Cheney
right.
was an actual man.
I know, but he wasn't a good man. It's like, hey, let's make a movie about, I shouldn't say this, but a movie about Hitler and make him a good guy.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I want to see a movie. I've seen
where
the
he's sympathetic in some way.
Not even sympathetic, just understandable how, because a person is not born evil necessarily. I mean, you could make that argument, but
you would like to see how he was shaped into something like that.
Yeah, because we get he was a drunkard who somehow failed his way up to Yale, but this is told in like these choppy, like, you know, 2 years later kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like he's a sloppy town drunk, and then he's at Yale, and then he's in Washington.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
What is this?
Yeah, it did jump through the timeline a lot. I would have actually liked to have seen why he became the way he does. Like, for instance, if you made a movie about Trump, what the reason Donald Trump is a scumbag the way he is because when he was growing up, you know, there were accounts where people were saying it, when he was having his hotel, he was saying "don't let any," and he would use like some horrible language, you know, involving people of another race in his hotels. So he taught him to hate other people, and then you saw him become the man he was. It's like, you know, maybe they did something like that with Dick Cheney. That would have been more interesting. This is kind of a movie where if you're going to go in and you already hate Dick Cheney, you're going to get what you want, and you're going to like what you get.
Yeah.
You know, but if you're going in and you want something a little more, you're not going to get that, which is why movies kind of, you know, for instance, if you see Nixon by Oliver Stone, that movie works because they still show Nixon as a shit, but he actually does have a very sympathetic angle towards the end where he just kind of wanted to please his mother, and he wanted to live up to something. And you kind of see those regrets on his shoulders. In the end, you actually kind of feel bad for him. Something like the Vice. It's just I keep trying to call it Backseat because that's what it originally was called. It seemed kind of one note. It seemed a little. It dived too much into where Adam McKay wasn't confident in his choices as a director, where it would always jump from like these fourth wall breaking comedic segments, you know, with
the end credits rolling.
Yeah, the end credits rolling,
mark,
doing Lady Macbeth, you know, doing all that. And it would have been nice to have seen Adam McKay's play it straight, because the best scenes in that film were the ones where, in the beginning, when they're in the war room and 9/11 just happened and Dick Cheney's calling over his lawyer, when he's playing it straight, he's doing great. It's like, we know you came from a comedic background, but really flex that dramatic muscle at him.
There's the point I'll put on this.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to the idea of the Oscars and sort of the controversy about award shows in the last few years.
Yeah.
You know, too many speeches, too much liberal politicking. You know, I've got very conservative in-laws who live 3 houses down from me.
Yeah.
My hope in watching Vice is that I would come to watch this as a movie that I could potentially say, watch this.
Yeah.
What do you think of your hero?
Yeah.
You know, what do you think of this critique, this balanced critique of a film that was offered to a greater degree in The Big Short?
Yeah.
But if I were to sit them down and watch this, be like, yeah, this is why we don't listen to you people and why we're winning.
Yeah, exactly. This is more of a fuck you, I know I'm right. That's kind of that was the thing I liked about it, was I liked it and I disliked it. I didn't like the fact that like there wasn't any sort of angle to Cheney where you could maybe understand him, but I also like the fact that it was unapologetic in its angle.
Sure.
So moving on from that, I guess we'll move on to the. Sorry to make you uncomfortable, Ashley, but the race films.
It is the Oscar race, after all.
Yeah, it is. So we'll start out with Green Book, which I don't know. It was like a cute audience pleaser.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I felt like that movie definitely could have had like 30 minutes trimmed from it, because after they did like the 5th scene where Mahershala Ali goes into like a southern bar and people are like yelling names at him, and then Viggo Mortensen diffuses the situation, and then everything kind of works out, and they're like on the road again, and everything's fine. I'm like, okay, like this could use some shortening. But again, this formula is familiar. You know, this is kind of like the bromance kind of film.
Yeah.
You know, and I did, you know, of course, if you ever want to win over someone's heart, to have your movie end on Christmas Day, where everyone gets together. And you know what? I did kind of like that. It was a familiar formula, but it was nice. I'm not sure if it was Best Picture nice. You know, I think it was more like, oh, wow, I found this on Amazon Prime. This was a pretty good movie, nice.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, maybe we can do a twofer here, because I watched BlackKKlansman.
Yeah, they're like complete opposites, which is the next one next to here.
Sort of. I watched, like thematically, I think they're almost the same movie.
Yeah, well, they're the same elements.
Yeah, because I watched BlackKKlansman, which I really didn't care for. I liked parts of it, but my problem with that, and we'll get to that in a minute, is that the main character was not the main character. He didn't change at all.
Yeah.
His sidekick did. The movie was about his journey. In Green Book, you have Mahershala Ali's character. He changes, dramatically from the beginning.
Viggo doesn't. But
no, Viggo does. It is a matter of they both have the same problem. You've got this New York, Bronx, tough, semi-mob guy, mob adjacent.
He was a bouncer. Yeah, he was more of a. He didn't work for the mob, but if the mob needed like someone to throw him out of a club,
he knew people. He could get work if he wanted. Right. Yeah. But Tony Lip was his name. Who turns out he was an actual actor. I looked this up because in the end where they do the pictures, like here's what the real person looked like. I'm like, was that guy in The Sopranos? And he was. He was in The Sopranos and Goodfellas and a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, he was just playing himself. Yeah.
Right, but he was. The point is, like, he had this really weird arc. I want to see like Green Book 2 or something to find out what happened to these characters after the story ends. But so he gets tasked with driving this African American pianist from New York, doing a tour of the Midwest down to the Deep South, and then back again.
Yeah.
And Tony Lip is, he's been sheltered in this kind of Bronx life. He's horribly racist to the point where he's got some plumbers over and they drink lemonade out of a glass. He throws the glasses away, which is astonishing.
Well, Tony wasn't racist. He just had stereotypes in his mind that he thought was funny. Especially when he's buying the KFC and he's like, "Come on, eat the fucking thing,"
Yeah, which is great. But look, maybe that's a semantics argument. I don't know. But when you're throwing away glasses because someone of another race drank out of them.
Wait, what scene was that?
That was like the beginning of the movie.
I don't even remember that.
He comes home from the Copa and he passes out and he wakes up the next morning and everybody's in his living room watching sports.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What are you guys doing here?"
Yeah.
And the one friend points to the kitchen and there's two black like service repairmen or something there.
Yeah, okay.
And they're like, was her name Connie? I think the wife.
Yeah.
He's like,
yeah.
Connie had some people over. I'm like,
shit, I didn't even remember
the
that.
gang has to be there to make sure there's no trouble.
Yeah.
So it's, he's not, burning crosses or anything, but he's definitely in this bubble.
Yeah.
Mahershala Ali's character, Don, is in a different kind of bubble, whereas he grew up very cultured and, almost turning his back on African American heritage and cultural roots. Mm-hmm. And through this road trip, he learns to connect with his past. And Tony learns that, there's a greater world outside of this bubble where things get really dark and dangerous, where the attitudes that he thinks is kind of like, oh, I live in the big city, there's segregation, but, kind of what's the harm? Everyone's kind of on their, different sides. When he goes down south, he sees, people are being, harassed and beaten and murdered.
Yeah.
And it kind of, awakens him to the fact that he needs to understand everybody as people on an individual level rather than these stereotypes, as you put it.
Right.
With BlackKKlansman, You've got Adam Driver's character is, he's Jewish. He's playing a Colorado cop who goes undercover with his new rookie partner, who's an African American, rookie cop. Gets the Klan on the phone and sets up the sting operation, but he needs a white guy to go in to go undercover with the Klan.
Yeah.
Adam Driver never connected with his Jewish heritage, and he wasn't forced to until he was in this situation where everyone is like, "You're not a Jew, are you? We hate the Jews."
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, I renounce." He uses all the expletives in the book.
Yeah.
So these are kind of twin movies, but what I loved about Green Book, even though it is it's the flatter. It's
it's like
Peter
the safer
Farrelly.
film.
It's a crowd pleaser. I think it's PG-13 because there's one F-bomb in there.
Yeah.
But then there's like every racist epithet in the books is in this movie. And I'm like, how does that work? But it is the kind of movie that you can sit down and watch, and there's dimension to it, and you can watch both of these characters kind of grow. The filmmakers fill in the scenery. You don't have to ask questions about like what was America like back then, why were things the way that they were. With BlackKKlansman, Spike Lee gets so far up his own ass stylistically that there's these giant holes that kind of form. Like, I don't understand where this character's coming from. The main black cop, Ron, is the same cocky, self-assured, barges in and gets his way for no apparent reason guy at the beginning of the movie, or at the end as he is at the beginning. He doesn't learn anything.
Yeah.
And that's what's frustrating.
Yeah. It's funny. I will agree with you on that, actually. And Green Book, I didn't see Viggo learning as much because he seemed like a good-hearted guy from the beginning. I didn't get the
he is. It's a subtler transformation.
Yeah.
And he learns to.
But he does eliminate a lot of stereotypes, like when they were talking about you're black, I'm blacker than you are because I came from the Bronx and I didn't have as much and
Yeah, that is a great scene in that car because it does point to. You can have the skin color, but if you don't have the experience, what is that?
What does it matter?
What does that mean? And why can't wider society understand that
and then,
same
but
thing?
but then like when Mahershala gives his viewpoint, I guess this is kind of he kind of gave like the Oscar nominee clip there where he said, wherever I go, because he's kind of like this very snooty sort of highfalutin sort of individual where he says, you know what? I'm black, but my own people don't know how to embrace me because of, kind of like how articulate I am and what I do and the places I perform. And then when I go to places that I perform, people don't, people won't let me have the same luxuries as they have. It was certainly a great moment when he went into that restaurant in the end, and he stood his ground and he said, "Look, I'm going to perform here." Or I'm gonna I should be able to eat here, and if I can't, I won't perform for you. So it was something they learned from each other, and it was a crowd pleaser. You're starting to make me like this movie a little more now. Actually, now I think about it.
I love Green Book. I'm not really pulling for any of the
I
nominees
didn't love it, but I liked it a lot. But BlackKKlansman, I liked a lot, but it did seem. My main issue with BlackKKlansman was I just thought. John Davis Washington, who's Denzel's son, you could just tell that was Denzel's son because, God, he was boring in it. His performance was just bad. Honestly, Denzel, he sounded whiter than fucking Adam Driver. Denzel's son, he sounds like the impersonation the black guy gives of, a white person. He's like, oh, what's going on here?
Well, that's what I was talking about. Spike Lee was so concerned about the artistry of his movie, which normally I don't discourage. But the end scene where both cops are escorting the Klan on this mission.
Yeah.
Ron, John David Washington's character, does not make any attempt to change his voice.
Yeah.
To disguise it, and we're just meant to.
Yeah, how did they not believe that was him? How did he go from Adam Driver's very baritone fucking Buffalo Bill voice to John David Washington being like, oh, hello, I'm Ron. Really? You didn't fucking think for a second you sound. Well, they did say for a second you sound different on the phone. I love the casting of Topher Grace.
Yeah,
though,
he was
because
wonderful.
If you hate Topher Grace, if you saw Spider-Man 3 and you're like, fuck you.
I like Topher Grace, but I think probably just because everyone beats up on him.
Yeah, they're like, okay, we're gonna cast you as David Duke, and we're gonna make you as hateable as possible.
What I liked about it is he was not a cartoon character.
He wasn't like a cartoon bad guy. He acted like a nice guy, but then he he would have all that racist shit underneath.
Yeah, and
he was just like a nerdy dude who would just like once in a while drop the N-bomb,
Well, and that's the thing is I think if there's parallels to today, you can see a lot of what we're seeing with the kind of threatened white male culture.
Oh, you mean like the ending of BlackKKlansman when they like flat out show Charlottesville, which I actually liked because you know what, Spike Lee. Here's the thing: you're gonna walk. This was sort of like a return to form for like Do the Right Thing.
Sure.
This felt sort of like a spiritual sequel to that in a way, where you had sort of like Spike Lee in his fuck you period. And then you had him kind of like trying to experiment things. What was that heist movie he did way back?
I
that
don't
was
remember.
Like, meh.
Oh, was that the 11th? No, forget it.
No, I think if you're thinking of like 25th Hour or whatever, I fucking love that movie with Edward Norton.
Yeah.
But this was Spike Lee going back to what he knows best. What he knows is movies that take on the system. Take on things that are relevant to today. Mm-hmm. And yeah, this movie was absolutely relevant to today. The characters do start and end at the same point. And much like Vice, this is a film that kind of preaches to the choir.
Yeah.
Where you know what it's going to say from the beginning and you know what it's going to say to the end. But then again, if this movie were to come out, let's say, when Obama was in office, I don't think I'd feel as strongly about it. I'd just be like, okay, yeah, that's true. But because we have psychopathic orange man in office, we see it and we say, yeah, fuck that, I fucking agree. But in the end, it's a film that kind of harps on the same note, which is a good note. But you know what? At least Spike sticks to his guns, and if you don't like it, you can fuck off and go home. And that's what I really enjoy about him. He's a guy who does not give a shit about what you think, and he's short like me, so short people represent.
All right. Yeah, I mean, the Charlottesville thing I thought was a bit on the nose is the wrong word because I don't know. I would see that more as an effective capper to a movie like Do the Right Thing. The other obnoxious thing was there's like 4 or 5 different clips in the montage, and they were all from Charlottesville, which is weird because typically when you see that ending thing, it's like, here's some horrible racist activity over here, and here's something from Colorado and Charlottesville.
They could have shown
and
different
Atlanta.
things. They could have shown a lot of things outside of Charlottesville.
Right, but that's the thing is like it gives the impression to someone watching who doesn't know anything, like what was Charlottesville happened a couple of years ago. And
it just
one
felt
person
like Spike didn't do
died.
enough homework for the ending.
It just felt like if
you're
making a movie about a society in which the Klan is literally like running, half the country, and then flashing forward 50 years and using Charlottesville as some kind of a weird representation to say that, yeah, it's still actually like that today, I just think it misses the mark a bit.
Yeah, and then for the last one to make this, to end this awkwardness, you
full disclosure, I am half black. I don't know if you knew that. My father was, he's dead now, but he was a black man. My mom was a white woman.
Okay.
So that's probably why I have a weird bias towards Green Book, because that whole conversation in the car about identity, I was like, I want to see more movies about race that are about this particular problem.
Yeah, rather than just kind of having a single side. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, Mahershala Ali was like the nerdiest dude ever, and you just want that dude to crack a smile. You're like, come on, man.
But on the other hand, I understand because it's the second I wondered, I had that same thought. I'm like, why don't you smile? I'm like, oh, because he's had a lifetime of being black in the
gay,
black and gay and a genius and a pianist. It's like what what other reasons are there possibly for someone to get beaten up at that period of time?
Which really would have sucks. Would have sucked. Look at me. Which really sucks when you're a black gay guy whose profession rhymes with penis back then. All right,
I was thinking about that because he was married at one point, and I was thinking he didn't leave his wife because he wanted to be a pianist.
Yeah,
it's because he wanted to be on. Never mind.
Because he wanted penis.
Yes.
Yes.
You said it, not me.
Yeah. But surprisingly, the movie that had sort of the most complex overtones was Black Panther in terms of race. I swear to God. And not because it was a Marvel film. Because here's my thoughts with Black Panther. I'm like, yes, maybe not deserving of Best Picture, but god damn, it made some good points where they had a magical thing in the movie called Vibranium where, like, they could have made, like, their whole race, like, fucking, like, the race in the world because they had this magical thing, but they kept it to themselves because just like, you know, the white man, they're power hungry. They want to keep it for themselves.
The colonizers,
and and it wasn't until Michael J. White's character. Did I get that right? Or is that no? That's Spawn.
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan.
I know you got Spawn in the brain.
Yeah. They got Michael B. Jordan in there, and he was the one saying, "No, you should distribute this to everyone. I'm right and you're wrong." You know, he had the nice thing with recent villains, which is they have a good point. Joker had a good point. Thanos has a good point. Michael B. Jordan, what was it? Kilgrave?
Eric Killmonger.
Killmonger, yeah. Killmonger. He had the best point, which is like this is a movie that, let's say, if they gave Ryan Coogler sort of the freedom that Christopher Nolan did with The Dark Knight, it could have gone that step above.
Yeah.
But because this is a Marvel film, and they have their sort of straight formula where you pull the lever. You need a CGI battle in the end.
Yeah.
You know, you need to have like all these characters interconnecting with each other. It stopped itself from reaching that point.
Yeah.
But I love the message in that movie.
I loved the message through most of the movie, which is a very weird position for a comic book hero movie to have.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, I mean, at the end they kind of step out of it, and we'll see how it gets resolved in the sequel. And there will be a sequel, despite what Avengers Infinity War
they're
Part
alive.
1 might...
Disney's not throwing that money away.
Anyway, don't get me started on Avengers. But no, what I liked is that T'Challa, Black Panther, is he's a black nationalist who has essentially built a wall around his nation and is not letting anybody in and doesn't want to share his resources with the rest of the world, which is, you know, that's you know, if you apply that to outside the Marvel universe, that is not a very heroic or popular position to take, especially in this country right now. And the adversary, the villain in the film, is the one who says, no, we should share all of our resources, as you mentioned, with the wider world. Let them know who we are. You know, we could do great things. Although his idea of great things is taking over the world, essentially.
This where he went a little step above.
So, but it flips back on itself. So towards the end, you know, both characters learn lessons. You know, Killmonger learns his a little bit too late, and there's still that element of pride that won't let him, you know, accept, you know, love essentially, because they're family. Spoiler. But
if you haven't seen it by now,
everyone's seen Black Panther, and that's talking about the Oscars. Like, I remember earlier in the year there was that idea of opening it up to the most popular movie category, which they got rid of. This feels like a concession to that.
This is exactly what it was.
That's this and Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, what movies made the most money this year?
Yeah, that, and, you know, of course, Disney, they own Hollywood.
Sure.
And of course, the Oscars is a popularity contest. And this is part of that popularity contest where they're like, well, let's see, it's a very popular film. It made a lot of money. And, you know, people always wanted a comic book film. You know, let's make a compromise here. I mean, if you want to talk about comic book movies that deserve to be nominated for Best Picture, it would be Dark Knight and Logan, you know. But this one, you know, in terms of the filmmaking, not so much. In terms of the messagery, I did like it, but no.
It was spectacularly acted.
I would have swapped out Sorry to Bother You for Black Panther.
Which I've not seen Sorry to Bother You yet. I need to catch up on that.
It's good.
All right.
But okay, so moving on from that, let's go to the 30 millionth version of A Star Is Born, which, you know what, I did...
Hold on a second. I gotta run to the meter.
Oh, sure. So let's talk about the 100 millionth version of A Star Is Born. I would say, considering this is like, I only saw the very first one, which even if you watch the new one today, it definitely has like all the same things that are like in the original.
Even the end?
Where he dies? Sorry. But yeah, yes.
I
Yeah.
was just gonna let that hang out there
Yeah.
and not spoil it for
No,
people.
like
Sorry.
literally in the nah. It's like this is unedited. Who cares? All right, spoilers. But like yeah, like at the very end, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So like as a retelling of it for the millionth time, I appreciated sort of the gritty, down to earth kind of aspect of it, where our main character meets the girl like in the shady bar, and she's kind of doing like like a little sexy singing show. I thought I didn't find it that believable that he would be that persistent to want to talk to this girl,
He
considering
was drunk.
yeah. Well, he was drunk, but also like he's around like a million like hot girls all the time.
Sure, I
And
don't
like he would literally drive to her house the next day and want to like have her visit him and stuff like that. Like this was a movie that was very well shot. It was well paced. I really liked the characters in it, especially Sam
Elliot.
thank you. Sam Elliott's sort of brother character, which I thought that was his uncle.
I thought it was like his dad or something like that. 'Cause yeah, well, I mean, like when I first saw them together, I'm like, oh, what's going on? Oh, they're brothers? Wow. And then you find out the backstory and the age difference, and it's sad and fascinating.
Yeah. Like it was a movie where one character learns something and the other character sort of does but does not. But one thing I absolutely loved about this movie, which, oh God, I'm such a hypocrite, but this is a film that really depicts alcoholism as someone who struggled with it himself very accurately.
Okay.
Where they didn't villainize the drunk. They didn't turn him into an abusive asshole or anything like that. Like, actually, when he was drunk, he was really likable.
Yeah.
And you kind of wanted to be around the guy. And I know I'm saying this, which is ironic because my show takes place in a bar and I drink on the show, but I've learned to drink in moderation, which takes real responsibility. This was a movie that depicted that so well. But, I don't know. Outside of that, I thought... Again, this is a very well put together film. I don't think it was an amazing film.
Right.
I just thought, this was kind of like maybe a 3 out of 4 star film. Lady Gaga, of course, was fantastic. I kind of wanted her to have more of a chance to show off her talents in the movie than focus so much on Bradley Cooper. But as someone who did all of those things, like directing, producing, acting in it, writing it, he did an amazing job.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was a good rendition of a classic story. And you do generally feel, especially in the scene when he's in rehab with Lady Gaga, and he just breaks down crying. Like, I actually got choked up in that scene because I know what it's like when you're there and you're just defeated because you know of all the stupid shit that you've done.
Yeah.
And it's a good recommendation for me. I think it's worthy of Best Picture. I don't think it is the Best Picture, but it was a very good film. I liked it. But I will have to say one more thing, which is I kind of wish movies didn't glorify fame so much, because you have Bohemian Rhapsody, which is about people performing in front of thousands of other people. You have A Star Is Born, which is about performing in front of thousands of people. And we keep feeding society this fictitious image of either you're famous or you're nothing. And I know that's kind of ironic because I have a YouTube show and I'm trying to become YouTube famous. But it's true. Like, just because you love something doesn't mean you have to be famous, doesn't mean you have to have thousands to love you. And I think we have this sycophantic love with fame that is prevalent in this film and in Rhapsody. Like, you think of that scene in Rhapsody when Rami Malek was saying, "Oh, what did you study? Oh, you were gonna do this. Oh, what did you study? Well, for your information, I was gonna be a genetic engineer." Yeah. And you just think, oh, really? So, being a doctor or an engineer is less important than being a rock star. Well, I don't think that's necessarily true, and I don't think that's a healthy thing to teach everyone. And, I'm kind of just tired of that theme throughout every movie. But outside of that personal bias, yes, it's a well-done movie.
Yeah, I was very much surprised by A Star Is Born because I like Bradley Cooper. I'm a big fan of Lady Gaga's music. wasn't so knocked out by her performance in this movie. but
Yeah,
that
it was
could
more of
also
her
be
singing than her
because-
performance. Yeah,
Right, and then partially that may be because the focus was essentially on Bradley Cooper.
send flowers to Glenn Close. Yeah,
Glenn Close.
yeah.
Sorry, but as far as the fame thing, the movie surprised me because it is about fame, but it's also about the dark side of fame, and the idea that just because you reach that superstar status, you bring into that whatever you had before you were famous.
Yeah.
And it wasn't enough to satisfy that black hole that was in the middle of Jackson, Maine, Bradley Cooper's character.
Yeah.
And it's a tragedy. And I think this movie is oddly anti-fame because it does, there's not a happy ending. It's not like all of the millions of dollars, whatever they spend on rehab and trying to put their relationship back together works. It's a very it's a dark message. And Lady Gaga's character, and I'm sorry I can't remember her name, but for her character's name.
I'll look it up.
But we'll just call her Lady Gaga for now.
Yeah.
She's got to have a life and ostensibly a career after this. So
Ally, that was the
Ally,
one.
yes.
Yeah.
I almost want to see a sequel to this movie to find out because the story
Yeah.
doesn't end here.
Yeah.
And and I would like to see what she does with that. Does she continue singing? Does she continue singing but going back to being in the bars? Or
Yeah.
does she somehow need the fans? Because as much as movies glorify fame and stardom, fans make up that fame and stardom. People
Yeah.
can have relationships with their fans and people can get meaning out of the art that they consume, whether it's movies or a rock concert or whatever. So this movie does not portray stardom as a one-dimensional thing.
Yeah.
I have not seen the other incarnations of A Star is Born, but something that strikes me is that this is the kind of film that there could be a 900th version of it, 5 years from now, because the fame landscape, the media landscape is changing so much that the components of this movie are going to be drastically different in a few years.
Yeah. I still think it's a movie that does glorify fame, though, because if Lady Gaga's character didn't become, Ally or whatever, but it's like she would have been nothing. And that's kind of what the movie shows us.
I don't think
And
that-
even if Bradley Cooper didn't become famous, he still would have drunken himself into a stupor and died. But the thing was, because they were famous, they became somebody. So the fans, yes, they make them, but in the end, the fans are just background characters. There's something that's there to just satisfy our protagonist's ego.
Well, here's the thing. If you look at Andrew Dice Clay's character, that's Allie's
Yeah, by the way,
dad.
the return of Dice.
Yeah, and he was really good in this role.
He
It's
was,
very
yeah.
surprising. But in terms of being anti-fame, he was a guy that everyone told him when he was younger that he could have been, in entertainment and really made. I think did he say Sinatra told him he was good once or something like that?
Yeah.
And he ended up just running quote unquote just running a limo company.
Yeah.
But even though he didn't become the next Frank Sinatra, he still had a great life. He
Yeah.
raised an amazing daughter who had her own dreams and aspirations. He discouraged her from pursuing that, but not because of any kind of fame thing. It's because of what his perception of that rejection was. So yeah, there is the glitz and the glamour of fame, but there's so many different dimensions to what it does to people. And I think we see glimpses of that and that enough in A Star Is Born that I'm not sitting here thinking this is just a glamour, drama-free, candy-coated, pop experience.
Oh, no, it's certainly not candy-coated. But in the end, it's even with Dice, you see that in a way he is kind of living vicariously through his daughter.
And that doesn't, but that does not speak highly of fame or the desire for it, the hunger for it. It shows it as a destructive force that takes your attention away from the good that you have in the moment, the quality of your own life, imagining that there is some quality that you don't
but it
have.
still was, and the whole selling point of the movie is that they became famous, thus they became a star, thus their life is more rich in a lot of ways, which they have to look back on themselves and appreciate what they have for what they have gained. And at the end of the day, the movie's saying, hey, you can do it too. If a famous guy finds you and wants to be in a relationship with you and you have talent, you can make it there. And it's just something
and then that person will kill themselves.
Yeah, well, again, that was, but still, would you rather die broke and lonely or be married to someone who, might kill themselves, but still is amazing. Now, the similarity between the original and the new version is the same thing happens. You have Bradley. You had the original version wasn't about singers but about actors, and the I don't remember the actors in the original one. I'm fucking old. I'm fucking young. Whatever. Yeah. And essentially, like, it was the same plotline. This girl wants to become a famous actress. She meets this actor, and then he puts her in a movie role. He's an alcoholic. He dies of alcoholism. He makes a scene in an award show. Okay.
Oh my God! I blocked that scene out. That was an Oscar-worthy scene in the new version of him at the Grammys or whatever. Oh my God.
Yeah, he pulled like a Kanye almost, and
that with the pissing on his pants.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Which but yeah, like that same things are only in all the other versions, and there's a glorification of fame. But yes, it does show the darker side of it. But we've seen that story so many times where someone gets to the darker side of the fame. It's like Citizen Kane. The guy got a lot of power, became famous, and he got consumed by it, and he just fucked everything up in his office, and then he dies in the end. Although that was a little different. That was about being in politics, but still, it's the same.
Slight difference.
Same thing though. Like same sort of thing where you get power and then it destroys you. But when Lady Gaga doesn't destroy her, it ends with her singing an amazing concert with thousands of fans cheering her on, like Bohemian Rhapsody.
So it didn't go on for 20 minutes at least.
Yeah. But yeah, so then I'm going to end on my maybe favorite movie, the misspelled favorite. Favorite. Fucking fancy British shit. But this is probably one of my favorite movies, though, because this
of the year or of all time. You want to set the table here? Okay.
Not of all time.
All right.
Of the year, my favorite movie of the year was Sorry to Bother You, which was Snubs. That and Won't You Be My Neighbor, if documentaries count. But no, I like this because this was a biopic that kind of had the look of Barry Lyndon mixed with the audacity of the madness of King George, where this is a film that didn't care about historical accuracy. And if you think, when I walked into the theater and I saw this movie, like, there was like all these old ladies coming in with their husbands and stuff because they thought they were going to get like a BBC period drama
instead of some BDSM or whatever.
Yeah, and that is not what they got at all. And,
wow.
And, if you know anything about the director Yorgos Lanthimos, right?
Yes, Yorgos Lanthimos, yeah.
Lanthimos, yeah. He's the guy who made The Lobster. What else did he make? Dogtooth.
Here's the thing, I did not see his last two movies, and I don't know why, because I loved Dogtooth, and I'm like, when I saw that, I'm like, I'm going to watch everything this guy does, and for some reason, The Lobster and, was it The Killing of a Sacred Deer last year?
Yes.
I did not see that,
but
I did watch The Favorite, and wow, I got to go back and catch up on his other stuff.
Yeah, because The Favorite is a period piece drama that does not care about historical accuracy. Is very vocal about it, even through the cast and crew, where mostly its accuracy is based upon hearsay, about the Queen and her, let's just say, very intimate relationships with her maidens. And this is a film that is completely unpredictable. And if you want something that is juicy, not just in terms of lesbian sex, but also in terms of people backstabbing each other and a film filled with twists and turns that you don't see coming, it is amazing to see. And also, I have to say that this movie does have a relevance to today, because these were people who were in power. This is about Queen Anne and the people who worked under her. I don't know exactly what their status or rank was specifically, because I'm stupid and I'm an American. But essentially, these were people who were letting the nation die, quite literally, when they were at war in 1701, 1707 with the French.
I missed the timeline.
Yeah. It was like 1707 with the French, and essentially they wanted to continue a war because that was just their own personal interest. Queen Anne was kind of powerless herself, and really everybody was just taking the whole nation on a ride for their own personal ego. Sound familiar? So I kind of like that subtext of it. I also like that this was a movie that was about woman in power, and it was adamantly about them in power, and it wasn't questioned by any of the male characters, you know, and it wasn't seen as anything different. Even the lesbian relationship, they don't really highlight, oh my God, they're lesbians. It was more like, well, these people are all in a three-way relationship. What are we going to do about this? Because somebody wants to be, just like the title says, the favorite to the queen.
Yeah.
So this is a film that really kind of floored me, where I didn't see half the stuff that was coming, and I would love to see a more female commanded-led film that we don't see very often. And really the men are kind of like the bitches in the movie.
It's not just the wigs.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, the favorite, I feel like I need to see it again because I think even, I don't remember, I watched Barry Lyndon like a few months ago for the first time.
Yeah.
And I want to say that movie had title cards, but I couldn't remember. The favorite lands you right in the middle of this palace, in the middle of this war, with no context. They don't give you, like, say, you know, in 1701, the British and the French were
they're just
fighting.
like, figure it out, dumbass. Like,
Yeah,
because
and
it's more about the relationship between the characters.
Right, but it's important, like, you really have to pay attention. I mean, I know, I get my history from the movies, and I don't watch half the movies that I should have, so I don't know anything about history, is what I'm saying. So I was watching this, I was thoroughly intrigued. I had to pay attention. I had to do some mental homework and remember these characters and relationships to each other.
I did a
figure out this
Wikipedia
palace
sheet. Yeah.
Intrigue. Right. Well, I mean, that's what I like about these kinds of movies is that after it's over, you're like, this is a historical drama. Like, who was Queen Anne? Who are these characters? And I want to go and read about it. Yes. Yeah, read more about it. So I can't say I loved The Favorite because I feel like it's an unlovable movie.
Oh yeah, no, none of the characters are likable people. They are all fucking horrible people who start and end at the same place. But you know what? Some movies are okay if they do that. Think of There Will Be Blood. Daniel Plainview starts and ends in the same place. But that movie's great because he's a reflection of American greed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think what I loved parts of the movie, but for some reason I can't say that I would watch The Favorite, you know, eagerly again. I want to see it again, but it's not like I'm not going to put it on every 5 years. But what I did like is Emma Stone's character. You know, she's Emma Stone. She has this appearance. You know, she was the girl from La La Land. You know, the lovable kind of sweetheart actress. So you think, oh, she's going to come into this situation and kind of vie for power to get in the Queen's favor because her, you know, she was wronged. Was it? Why can I not think of the other
Rachel
actress?
Weisz?
Rachel Weisz, yes.
Yeah.
And Olivia Colman playing the Queen.
Yes, she was Lady Anne in the film, yes.
Yeah, Lady Anne, sorry.
No, it's
Queen
okay.
Anne.
I only know it because I wrote down their names.
Well, it's cheating, but I appreciate that
Fuck
in a
it.
situation like this. But no, so you get, she's Rachel
Lady
Weisz.
Sarah, I got it wrong.
Lady Sarah, okay. Queen Anne.
Queen Anne, Lady Sarah. See, I'm a dumbass now.
Yeah, so Abigail, Emma Stone's character, is the cousins, I think, with Sarah?
Yes. I had to look this up to understand it, and also because the old people next to me were like explaining shit to each other, like because they're cousins, and I'm like, okay. At first, I thought Rachel Weisz, who was banging Queen Anne, I thought that was like her daughter. I'm like, oh my God, she's fucking her mom. And when I saw it,
yeah,
she's a motherfucker.
That brings new context to the term "the favorite." You know?
Yeah, exactly.
But
oh shit.
Yeah. So, but you get the feeling that Emma Stone is going to be the hero of this movie, and that she just wants to, you know, use this situation to regain what was what was taken from her as far as status, because she went from being, you know, a member of this perhaps powerful organization to being literally like thrown in the mud, and I think her dad lost her in a poker game or something like that. And you know, horrible things happened to her. But you come to find out that she has these deep-seated ambitions, and she will do anything to screw anybody over and make these weird alliances with the members of like Parliament or whatever. It's fascinating. It's darkly funny. It's very literate. Performances are wonderful, and I love that the karmic tectonic plates are constantly shifting.
Yeah.
So at first you think, oh, Rachel Weisz's character, she's awful and evil, and I want to see bad things happen to her. And then by the end of the movie, you're like, no, it's kind of Emma Stone that I don't like. I like her less than I like Sarah, even though
Just
they're
all
both
three
kind
of them are
like
terrible
awful
people.
Well, Queen Anne, I wonder. I can't be mad at her because she seems like she's
unwell
mentally
mentally.
afflicted. Yeah, like I don't know what she was like, if she's always been like this or if something's happened. I get the feeling it's like some kind of a
She
seeping
lost like
sore
17
madness.
of her children in childbirth.
Oh my God, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that'll do it, I imagine. But
Yeah.
and that scene where she was, she cares for these rabbits. They're
Yep.
like hopping around everywhere.
Which
She
in real
explains
life,
this story.
rabbits were always seen as food or peasants, so that was something that wasn't accurate. But who gives a shit? Because movies are about our feelings. Let's talk about how we feel, and that was the thing about this film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt terrible after watching it, but then again, I felt great because I'd seen some pretty spectacular art.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. The cinematography is wonderful.
So
I
those
love the
wonderful
usage of the
fisheyes?
fisheye lens.
Fisheyes, yes.
Because I guess like some of the old paintings from back then would sort of use that sort of angle, I guess. As Yorgos Lanthimos was saying, I don't know, it's a foreign name, I can't pronounce it. And he was saying he was sort of going for that sort of look,
Well, I loved it. It reminded me of like an Escher, drawing a lot of those kind of fisheye compositions because you're in this ornate palace where nothing really makes sense. It's kind of like being in Donald Trump's apartment.
Yeah.
Gold and gaudy, weird
just
art
seeing
shit
people
everywhere.
pissing everywhere, yeah. And but also it gave you this feeling like you're looking into something you shouldn't be looking into.
Yeah.
And that's what was really nice about it. Like this is a big eavesdropping film. And again, it's a lot of all these movies are relevant to today. But I liked how this one was relevant in a way where it was more subtle, where you had to look into it to understand it. It wasn't like BlackKKlansman, where they're hitting you over the head with a sledgehammer, like remember Charlottesville, or it wasn't like Green Book, like we can all get along. This was more like these are people who have giant egos, and people are losing their lives or losing their money all because they want to satisfy this other woman's ego. And in the end, Emma Stone learns from her own sins, which I didn't understand at first. I thought she was, giving her a little, but she was just rubbing her leg.
Yeah.
Because in the end, she was just a servant. Yeah.
Yeah, and she had been enslaved in a way that Sarah had broken free.
Yeah.
And there's that one wonderful line where she said, "You think you've won."
Yeah.
But the other thing that's in terms of relevancy today is there's a lot of talk about the patriarchy.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that this movie presents is an idea of examining what is patriarchy versus what is power, and looking back toward through history, because arguably there was not a patriarchy in effect under Queen Anne. You could say that she was being manipulated by forces all around her, but those were largely female-led forces. The real powerhead at the driving force in this movie is Rachel Weisz's Sarah. She's smarter than everybody else in the movie. She's more cunning and she's more daring, and she's able to wield that power through this puppet. So you kind of you look at the modern context of everything has always been ruled by men for as long as people have been in existence, and that's not exactly true.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about looking up things after the movie's over. This is the kind of thing that kind of opened up my brain. I'm like, I want to know more about this and how things got to be the way that they are today.
Yeah.
Coming from roots such as this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll end on that note. I think if you were to pick your favorite movie of, maybe not of the year, but out of these
All time?
categories.
Oh, no.
Oh God. Reachable. But of these categories, what would which one would you choose of the 8s?
It's weird. I'm probably going to say Green Book.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's the thing is I don't really have a favorite out of these movies. I mean, it'd probably be like Green Book, and The Favorite would probably tie oddly, but I don't have an emotional connection with them. The only movie I really care about this year is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, winning Best Animated.
That movie was fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was incrable.
That movie was like, that was a blender of creativity. like even visually, like we're
Yeah.
fucking like shit's just flashing all over the place in different colors. They're making fun of the origin story like 8 different times.
Yeah.
Like that movie was an orgy of creativity.
Yeah, and it's about something, it's about ideas, and it's a breakthrough in animation. Like, it's also that and A Quiet Place, which wasn't nominated for anything. Those 2 movies this last year created unique movie-going experiences.
Yeah.
People say, movies are dead. You know, people don't watch things on their phones. You can't get the full effect of those movies unless you see them in a theater with a crowd.
Exactly. Oh man, you got to see Sorry to Bother You with the crowd, because that movie didn't get nominated because that is like a fuck corporate. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. It is.
Alright.
It's an amazing.
It is. Yeah, it is. No, you're right. Ashley was talking about it. It is amazing because that movie won't. Our camera woman, Ashley, is talking about it. It's such a good movie because it is a fuck corporate America movie. So when they literally turn people into work horses, like literal horses in it.
Like a human centipede situation? Or
Yeah,
what? Wow.
like not they don't like glue each other, but they turn into fucking horses.
Okay.
And oh my god, but it's so insane and bizarre. Like the Academy always allows for like one bizarre film, and that was The Favorite. But that just straddled the line where it's bizarre enough, but you could still handle it.
All
It
right.
didn't go like full lobster or anything, right? So like. This movie goes a little lobster in the end, but yeah, that was amazing. I mean, and of course, the documentary category. I'm so pissed that they didn't nominate Mr. Rogers. Apparently, they didn't want them to be their neighbor. Fucking assholes. And They Shall Not Grow Old was also gypped.
I want to see that. I've not seen either of those movies. The Mr. Rogers one is only because I haven't talked to anybody who's watched it who has not told me, oh my god, I could barely handle it. I was a wreck at the end, like as a complete emotional like.
That's overhyped.
Okay.
That's a little overhyped.
Now, maybe I just need to get new friends.
Yeah.
So you're saying you watched it with a balanced emotional perspective, and you still thought it was great.
Yeah, I would say, it definitely kind of like if you watch BlackKKlansman, you're gonna be like, oh my god, that's not Trump! They're building a wall! But it's something where it's special because it teaches empathy that is not taught a lot, and it's something that values individuality, where you're special for just the way you are. And you don't have to become famous to be that.
I think Billy Joel said that. Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, outside of that, oh god, I could go on forever. We could talk about how they gypped the fundamentals of cinematography and editing for
by putting in the commercial breaks?
Yeah.
You know, it is that if there's any doubt that this is a popularity contest and not about the art of cinema.
Yeah.
It's the fact that they're sticking editing and cinematography, and you watch the In-N-Out Burger commercial instead of seeing these artists get their
Well, that's
due.
the thing. The Academy has always been that way, but it just got worse over time. And now that there's more number, like the Golden Globes used to just be a private dinner. And now it's this televised thing, which hey, you know what? If you want to cut out cinematography and editing, then take out the fucking television categories from the Golden Globes. Come on, let's go the whole 9 yards. Fuck it.
Here's the thing: they're not going to even have a host this year, which
Yeah.
that's a whole other tangent, right? But like, you could say, I can understand. Okay, we got to fit in Kevin Hart or whoever in their bits and the musical comedy or whatever. They're not having a host, so put cinematography and editing back into the show proper.
Yeah, if you're not going to have a host, what was that one year they had the Oscars where they actually literally took the categories, they had people come on the stage and they combined them together and then they left. It was like in 2003 or something, or 2002.
I don't know.
But it was bad. Yeah. I remembered it so well. But gosh, all right. Outside of that, I'm going to work on set this year and not see the Oscars because I yell at it like a football game. And I literally do.
That's great.
Yeah.
I wish
We
I
should
could get
just
that
get-
emotionally invested in it.
We should just get footage of that and put it on the show. Yeah, say in the comments if you want that. If you want to see me literally scream at the Oscars legitimately. But
I want to see it. I'll put that in the comments.
yeah. No, but Ian, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This
Check
has
out
been
Kicking
awesome.
the Seat podcast, or is it Kicking with the exclamation or the
Apostrophe?
Words? Apostrophe.
No,
at
it's
the end.
just Kicking the Seat.
Kicking the
You can
Seat
see
podcast.
kickseat.com or iTunes Kicking the Seat podcast.
The link will be in the description below.
Yay.
I'll Facebook message him and ask him for that. And then this is You'll Probably Agree. You probably aren't watching this anyway, so who gives a shit? And we will be up with our website soon at ypareviews.com, where you can see my written reviews for various films. All right, thanks a lot, guys, and You'll Probably Agree.